Well, good evening. Not exactly sure what happened here. Let's see. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Burgess?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All
I
right.
got you
Uh,
loud and
uh,
clear.
okay. I know Bill will be around sometime, I'm assuming. I know he might be involved in one of his many drafts.
Right.
I do. Mike, I did hear from him a little earlier, and he seems that he had to put his dog down. Uh,
Oh no.
so he might be on, and he might not. But
Yeah. Yeah. Been through that. Not a fun experience at all.
yeah, I've been through it a couple of times myself. Not with other animals,
Yeah.
not just dogs, but sometimes you want to take your mind off of it, and I told him,
Right.
feel free to join us either way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And but a couple things happened prior to us coming on the air, and prior to me
Yeah.
sending out things.
Right. They got you this time, didn't they?
uh, but let's talk about baseball. I know you're a big baseball fan. It seems
So,
like baseball is back on. We touched on it a little bit last week,
yeah.
how it was kind of the greatest of pettiness, as we usually talk about in football. But
Yeah.
what was your thoughts about this settlement and the last minute urgency to
Yeah.
get it
That-
done?
yeah. So first of all, I'm thrilled, right? Because I'm a baseball guy. I'm thrilled. I'm wearing my Negro League Detroit Stars T-shirt today in honor of that. I like the game, and the Tigers are in a place where they're about to get really fun to watch. But as the deal works, like you said, people don't make deals, right? Deadlines make deals. And, lost money is what gets deals made. And at some point, this thing was going to become okay. We're about to start losing revenue if you're an owner, and as players, we're about to start missing checks, and that's when it happens really quickly, right? And I think that I'm happy about the deal because it somehow allowed the owners to keep this system that I don't love in place, which they weren't going to tear down the system. But at the same time, the players got pretty much everything they wanted, which I'm happy about. Because I'm not, if I had to say I'm leaning one way, it's probably slightly toward the players because I understand the system where they own your rights for 6 years, they manipulate service time, the way arbitration works. I've never really been a fan of that system. So I lean a little toward the players. This actually is an agreement that ultimately is good for me, the fan. I get games. I get all 162. But the players did well. They got the tax incrementally raised from 210 to 244, which is important. And if you don't understand it, it is about more money being paid to players at the end of the day. They got the minimum salary for players under 3 years bumped from 570 and phases up to 780. Again, that's more money being paid to players. Arbitration pool that didn't exist is there now. Subtly buried in the fine print, the National League is about to adopt the DH, something we've been talking about for like 40 years. And it's just way down buried in the contract somewhere that the National League is going to the DH. That's about 20 other jobs. That's about 15, 16 new jobs. Players getting paid. They have a draft lottery and they put in a little thing, a little draft inducement, it's called. It will help the owners stop manipulating service time, which was my biggest complaint about the agreement between the baseball players and the owners, is that the owners would manipulate service time, literally taking money out of guys' pockets in a sneaky fashion. And they put in some things to check that. So
Can,
as
can you
an
can you
agreement,
kind of explain that
sure.
service time thing to us?
So yeah, when you come up as a major leaguer, they start a clock, and you are under what they call control of the team that drafts you for 6 years. But when you come up, say year one, you have to play a certain number of games before that year counts towards your service time.
Right. It has to vest.
It has to vest. So teams would routinely let a guy play up to right up to that number, right? And then they send him down to the minors. Exactly. Yank the rug like Real Bill just did. So it wouldn't count toward his service time. In essence, you get another year of service out of this guy under these arbitration rules, and you don't have to pay him. And this is year 6, year 7. If you're really, really good, that's a lot of money being taken out of your pocket. That is a good amount of money. So putting these draft inducements in place to discourage manipulating service time, that is as critical to me as anything they did in this. I like they also limited the number of times you can send a guy down to the minors. So the service time thing is just teams used to play games with how many actual games a guy played in a year so that he wouldn't start toward free agency, right? And it literally was obvious, it was blatant, and it was stealing money from players by just they come up and play 20 games or whatever, they send them back down. Even if you're playing well, it didn't matter. It wasn't about whether or not you were good or helping the team or whether you were ready. It was about making sure they could delay paying you for another year. And it was really, really insidious. It was a horrible practice that was clear and obvious that teams were doing it. So I'm glad they addressed it. But as an agreement, I think it's fine because to a degree, the owners still have this agreement in place where they can control players in their prime, which in their mind, gives them power in the game. But players got a lot of what they wanted. Players got almost everything they wanted in this deal. So I'm happy that I'm getting 162. So for me, that's what it is.
Now, I'm going to let you, instead of doing like Bill usually takes all of your thunder,
I know.
I'm going to because you mentioned something that I didn't even know about, and that was the designated hitter in the National League.
Yep. Yeah. They slipped it down in the bylaws, down in the bottom of the contract, below all the CPT and the minimum salary stuff. But it's there, and it's jobs though. It's 15, 18 jobs for guys now who probably would be out of baseball.
Bill, we as you can see, we were talking about the new contract,
the new CBA,
right? And the urgency to get it done. But hey, we got her done, I mean, hey, we hunkered down, we got it done, and we're gonna have baseball. Your thoughts, Ben?
It never had to happen, as I'm sure Demetrius already covered, and covered very well. First of all, sir, very well covered.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What wasn't discussed, or maybe it was, and I didn't catch that part, was that there still is a little bit of a mini rift in both in the MLBPA between older and younger players, or richer and poorer players, a little bit.
Right.
Healed a little bit, but there's still a little bit of that. And as somebody already mentioned, I'm sure someone mentioned, 5 out of the 8 guys on the player negotiating council are all Scott Boras.
Exactly.
Are all represented by Scott Boras. And not that always means something, but it usually means something. And then there's still a little bit of a mini rift between people say big and small market, but I don't think it's always about size of the market. I think it's really between teams that value winning over maximizing revenue, and teams that prioritize maximizing revenue over winning. Right. And some of them are small markets, but there's some small market teams that really are deciding to try to win. They may not be able to try as hard as a team like the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Red Sox because there's a limit to what they can do. But there are teams that are more committed to winning. Everyone wants to make money, don't get me wrong, but they have a stronger commitment to winning, I'll put it that way, than some of their other brethren amongst the smaller market franchises. And I think behind the scenes, there will be some fence mending, I think, on both sides. I think we'll still see some of the, hopefully, some attempts to, because some of the, and once again, this is stuff I've heard from people who've heard things, so I can't corroborate, but sort of third and fourth hand, that some of the younger players felt like they were being used as, a point of discussion about what mattered to guys who maybe didn't care as much about those things as they sounded like they cared about it. But whether that's true or not, once again, I have no way of proving. But one, it happened. That's what the thing that matters to most people, that it did happen. And while I still think Rob Manfred may be, despite the things we hear about Goodell, and even to some extent,
Adam Silver.
Forgot the name of the NHL commissioner again.
No, Bettman. Gary Bettman.
Gary Bettman, thank you. And though all of them get derision and scorn, I think there's a special little venom to it with Manfred. You know, a little extra spice, you know, when I hear people, because when people boo Goodell, it's almost good-naturedly almost, you know what I mean? Like, boo, get out of here, boo. You're a stuffed shirt, boo. But they're not going to key his car in the parking lot. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference there. You know, people think Bettman's a goof, and he kind of is. He's not terribly competent. He's not well-liked. But there's no actual, like, venom to it. But with Manfred, there's a little something. You know, there's a little something to it. He is genuinely disliked in a way that goes beyond, in my mind, that sort of, you know, you suck that we get for all the other commissioners. There's some people I think really do not, I don't want to say they wish harm on him, but they certainly wish for something bad. Like maybe not permanently scarring, but something, Okay,
I'm one of those people. I am. You tap away. That's why I'm laughing. Bill nailed it. It's different. It's different with Manfred.
Yeah, it is. And so this did him no favors, obviously. Like whether or not he really had anything to do with it or not, there was this sense that, for the love of God, man, don't like leave the negotiations to work on your golf swing. Like there's things, it's like he doesn't get the optics of it. Like at least look like you've been, roll your sleeves up, you know, have your big thing of coffee in your hand, look tired, you know. There's things, do the things the other people do when they're going through these kinds of processes, where they make it look fake it until you make it if you have to, but don't literally look like you're just there to be there, which sometimes you look like.
And it's simple. What Bill's talking about is, we give a damn. I want you to at least act like you give a damn. Don't act like it's just another day. It's not. If you cancel this season, you start canceling games, that's a big deal, and you're acting like it's no big deal, and that's really what it is.
Yeah. I mean, even if you think of the commissioner as no more than a figurehead who is simply put there to represent the interest of the owners, and that would be a fairly accurate way to think of the commissioner. There are things that do still matter, even if they're symbolic. And he blew that part. He blew the easy part. It should be the easy part of your job.
Metal, or just a piece of metal? Are you guys work their lives to hold up that World Series trophy, and you just called it a piece of metal?
Yeah, he blew that too. Oh, that was. I mean, I understand.
That's when I flipped the switch on him. That's when
you're right. No, not everyone's comfortable on camera. Like I get that. Though it should be kind of a requirement for the job, though. I mean, it should. Like you realize at some point he's got to be on TV, right? I mean, whatever. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, he was bad. Like bad. Like every time he's on camera doing something. Even things that are fairly simple, like I don't know if he prepared his remarks for that or not when he was doing the whole MVP thing with the Willie Mays. Oh, that was bad.
He did not. He did not prep at all.
So bad. If you didn't prepare remarks, if you're not great at speaking on your feet, and some people aren't, then you have people. Like maybe you're not great at writing, but you have people. There's a staff. Use them. Some of those people, somebody in your office has won awards for their writing before. I promise you. Make use of those.
Let them do their job. Exactly.
Oof. So yeah, that's. I mean, the nuts and bolts of it were really covered by Demetrius, and the owners have been gaming the system for decades, as he pointed out, and it's incredibly frustrating to young players, particularly when they're playing out of their minds. When you're Ronald Acuna, when you're who else got yo-yoed for a while?
I think Tatis got the business for it.
Tatis Jr. There we go. Thank you. That's another guy got yo-yoed.
Yeah.
And you're killing it. It's one thing if you're struggling, but if you're hitting like, 177, you can't really complain when they send you down. But if you're hitting 291 with like a, 8-something slugging percentage, maybe you're
right. You got to go to an arbitration hearing and have somebody say you didn't steal enough bases. That's not what I do, right? Yeah.
More to the point, it's not what we do. Like, how many teams even do that anymore, really?
Bill, 10,000 words or less. What did you think about Tiger's speech?
I mean, Tiger's always. We're talking about Eldrick Woods, I assume. Okay, he's Eldrick Taunt Woods, right? If I remember his middle name correctly.
Yep.
T-O-N-T, Taunt. The only Taunt amongst people I've run across who are Hall of Fame level athletes who have the middle name Taunt. I think he's the list. So he's always been good. He's a bright guy, and he's good. He's good on camera. He writes well. He thinks well. Even like his Instagram posts and stuff like that, which are, he probably gets help with those, but they're always good. Like, you never think, oh, that should have stayed in the draft. Like, you never think that with him. The last time he blew it was Cablination, right? He hasn't had a bad moment. I know, right? But think about it. He hasn't had a moment since then, right? Everything else that's happening, obviously there was, the stuff with his marriage, but that's not the same. I mean, that's not, that's not something is going to happen. Camera, and he knows he's going to be on camera. Everything he's had a chance to prepare for has always been on point. He's a smart guy. He writes well. He thinks well. I mean, to me, it's just him doing what he does, right? I mean, he smooth, well delivered, and accurate, sort of like his game was at its best.
He has gotten. I mean, it was right off the rip with Sam doing the intro, so you were already hooked, right? It was already, and then he opened up a little bit. He talked about being barred from clubs as a junior. He's always going to pay tribute to his dad and his mom. He does that right. He does, and some people might say, "Oh, that's too robotic." Whatever. Nah, if that's what you're going to do, that's how you do it, right? You pay tribute to the people who got you there.
Yep.
You try and give insight, whether it's incidences of racism or financial hardship. You want to open the curtain a little. I don't know that he's ever going to be open kimono, kind of, see it all. He's never been that. And if you're waiting for that, have fun. That ain't ever going to happen. I thought it was great. I thought it was, like I said, I thought it was, to Bill's point. I want to use the word polish, but that almost sounds like an insult. And I don't mean it to be an insult.
Well, I mean, the guy was a 3.4 guy at Stanford. I mean, despite doing all the stuff he's doing, he didn't graduate, but he could have.
Yeah. But
so,
I mean,
he's exactly what a guy who went to Stanford should sound like.
But just just think of what you said. A 3.4 at Stanford.
Exactly.
I mean, and that was the Stanford. I mean. Right. The Stanford.
That's real Stanford.
Right? When it didn't matter what you looked like, it mattered what you were on paper.
Yeah.
Before you could get there.
Right. And unlike some schools, right? So he was an econ major. And so just to put this in perspective, he wasn't in like leisure studies or
communications,
right? None of that stuff. No, he was an econ major at Stanford.
Right.
So he wasn't just getting a get me over kind of. No, he was in a very demanding major.
He had a curriculum. It was a legitimate curriculum he had to go through.
Yes,
I think I do the biggest thing from the speech itself that I appreciated, which he's always done, is people will often just talk about his natural ability. He worked hard. People sacrificed for Tiger Woods to become Tiger Woods and be Tiger. And not just Earl and Lutilda. I think that's it. Cutilda. I don't want to mispronounce his mom's name. Sorry. They obviously sacrificed, but he understands. And I don't know if he always did. I don't know if he always showed that he did. He understands how much other people gave up for him to get to be Tiger Woods. I saw that in his speech. And that's what I appreciated most. I loved his daughter's introduction. That was just cool. But that he clearly gets, and some of it might have been the accident, some of it might have been other things he went through. This guy was humbled, right? 20 years ago, this speech would have been a different guy. I like that there's a maturity and a humility with 2022 Tiger Woods that came out of that speech. I liked it.
Well, now, if you appreciate that, Demetrius, I'm sure you appreciate the words of the aide of, U.S. Representative Ronnie Jackson of Texas. His aide came out and said that she wasn't suing Jerry Jones about the money. She just wants to be his daughter. She just wants to call him dad. But I mean, Demetrius, you scoff. I mean, what's your thoughts on this Jerry Jones love child here?
Yeah, that's tough for me because are we talking about like people will be honest and not be sincere? You can do these things, and so I don't know. I don't know enough about this person. I didn't love the comments and what they were saying. You don't do that. That's not public stuff. That shouldn't be for public consumption. My biggest thing was, wait, why do I even know about this? Why am I even hearing about this? This is the kind of stuff people that look like us usually do this in the house. Like you don't, I think there's a road in every town called Front Street, right? There's a road in Chicago and in Flint, Michigan, and pretty much everywhere else called Front Street. What you do not do is you do not take family business out there and put it out there. So I was surprised. I found it. I scoffed because that's how I found it. And I wonder, why do I even know this? Why is this out there for public consumption? But I mean, Jerry does everything. Everything Jerry related has to be out there, though, right? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, to put it in perspective, Jerry paid off Mama what $375, to keep this under the rug, which makes me kind of wonder about Mama's ethnicity, but I'm not going to get into that because it's not Cribbing After Dark yet.
Right, we gotta wait an hour.
But Bill, I'm sure. Give us a. Do you know? I mean, tell us. What's going on here? Like she said. I mean, like she said. It's not about the money. I just want to know. I just want him to acknowledge that. I'm his daughter.
Well, I mean, if you get acknowledged that by Jerry Jones that he is indeed your father, everything else will take care of itself.
Right.
It doesn't have to be about anything else at this point.
Right.
And if you are a person, and I can only imagine, because I've obviously from the moment of my birth known who both my parents were, and they, have never had any sort of confusion about that. And anyone who knew my father, if they're looking at me now, would say that there could be no confusing that whose child I am. From the way I talk to the way I think to the way I act to the way I look, it's very clear whose son I am. But it's easy for us to say, what it's about or what we think it's about. But when I think about what it must be like to feel like you're missing some part of your identity and to feel like there's questions about yourself that you can't answer. I once again, I have to imagine that's a difficult thing. I have to imagine that makes your life somehow feels incomplete, right? And somehow there's a sense that something is missing. So even if we can, for a moment, quiet the roar of cynicism that sort of plays in the background and just sort of focus for a moment on, a woman who's grown up, and I don't know what she was told growing up, right? I don't know if at first, there were other stories about, who could have been or should have been or whatever. And then eventually her mother came clean. I don't know the sort of backstory of how she eventually came to know this, but however it happened and whenever she found out, I'm going to assume that she went through a period of trying to figure out herself how to go about this, how to negotiate this, how to move forward. And yes, I'm sure there are people around her who said, "Oh, well, girl, go get that money." I mean, because if it turned out that my father was Jerry Jones instead of, William Carroll, or it turned out that Demetrius' father was Jerry Jones, the man that he is, he would also make some inquiries and make some phone calls and probably retain legal counsel, right? First of all, that's just smart. I mean, let's be honest. Like, I'm not going to criticize a person for doing just what's smart. That's just smart. That's what you should do. So I'm not going to cast aspersions on this young woman. And if indeed her claims have basis, I hope that something is done. If her claims, it turns out, do not have basis, then we will, in a matter of weeks, forgotten about the whole thing.
Yeah.
I would like to be exposed as Donald Trump's uncle. But that's another stuff.
And you know what, guys, quickly for like, you guys are my guys and we could be transparent. The man who raised me is in fact not my biological father. And I found out at 26.
Oh, wow.
And I will say that I wasn't missing anything. In the very first conversation I had with him, I said to him, listen, we'll be fine if you understand that Matthew Burgess was because he had passed away at that point and always will be my father. So I was not missing anything. I was missing nothing. That man made me feel as loved and appreciated as a father could. And he got his belt out when I got in trouble, and he came to Little League baseball games, and he did everything a father's supposed to do. So I chuckled when Bill said, had I found out that the dude was Jerry Jones? I don't know.
You don't know how you handle that one? You don't know how you handle that?
I like to think my integrity would have been intact. And like I said, I carry my father's last name with pride because he is my father. And there was no animosity, no negativity. My experience wasn't a bad one. He understood where I was coming from, and we got along great until the day he passed. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I'm with Bill. Somebody in her circle was like, look, you know what his net worth is, right? And that's my guess. Because she's like an aide to, so she's not struggling, my guess.
No,
she's
she's not
an aide
struggling.
to a congressperson. She's probably bright, somewhat accomplished already.
Yep.
And I doubt if she's hurting financially, but it is an interesting thing. I hope we hear more about it.
Yep.
Now, in the interest of full disclosure, Papa was a Rolling Stone. When I moved here in 2003, in 2004, I was contacted by my son, who I hadn't seen or heard in 26 years, I believe it had been at that particular time. But just the fact, that he reached out and was, not, thankfully he hadn't followed in my footsteps. But we were able to connect and
That's good stuff.
So, it's interesting when you're on the other side of that coin.
Yeah.
It wasn't that it was a known entity, but it was just the fact that of some things that had transpired. But the town, you could throw a rock from one end to the other, so it was like but anyway, so the chronicles of the temptations go on, as I said. But so let's talk a little basketball here while we have a few moments. I'm going to see if Mike comes in or not before we move on to the NBA. I mean, to the NFL. Well, before we get to
Go on and get the Bills board. Jump right in the Bills board. Right in the Bills board. Do whatever order you want. I'm leaving Bill all my time on his board.
Okay. All right. Bill, I'm going to start with, I remember, I think it was just a couple of seasons ago, this particular gentleman had were they cupcake T-shirts made, I think?
Oh, we're talking Durant.
No, we're talking about Russ.
Oh, Russ. Sorry.
Didn't Russ have some cupcake T-shirts made referring to Durant?
Yes.
Okay. And Russ, I don't remember him having any problem when we were talking about what was it, Mr. Triple Dub?
Yeah. He liked that nickname.
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah. But anyway, it seems now that he has an issue when it comes to names like Westbrick.
Right. Yep.
But this guy is the highest paid. Let me rerun that. The highest paid Laker. Okay.
Yep.
And this is professional basketball, Bill. I mean, there's going to be a lot of times when you get called, if you're not called, out of your name, or I mean, when I say out of your name, like the N word or, something,
Right. I know what you mean.
of that nature. I mean, that's a lot of money to be called whatever the hell I want to if
You
I
gotta
buy
roll
that
with it.
ticket.
They,
Right,
they can call
right.
me out of my name. 47 million a year. I can't even hear them. My earplugs are so dense, I can't even hear that.
Right. Yes, you can order up, some special like pure tungsten carbide or whatever,
Right,
Beats by
exactly.
Dre or whatever it is. Yes,
Exactly.
right. Military grade. So here's what it is. We talked about this quite some time ago, and we actually might remember I was not a huge fan of the deal that brought him there. And as I said, so someone looked at the Lakers roster and said, "Oh, we should get older." I mean, I remember saying this. Like
We
this
joked about
was
that meeting. Yeah.
very strange to me that one of the oldest teams in the league thought the solution was to add more old players to the roster. And not just old physically, but very much set in their ways also, right? So the best possible usage of him would be the leader of their second unit. And I know it sounds weird to say a $47 million guy should be coming off the bench, but for the good of the team, if that's what you're about, if you're trying to win games, that's really what he should be doing, is leading your second unit. As of now, there's a lot of subtraction by addition on the Lakers team right now. A lot of guys who are getting in each other's way, and I mean, it's not pretty basketball. They're getting down like double digits, big double digits, teams that aren't nearly as good as they are, and then trying to claw their way out of it. And by claw their way out of it, I mean give the ball to LeBron all the time. So that this guy who should be playing fewer minutes, especially high intensity minutes, is now closing out games playing all the high intensity minutes.
Exactly.
They're doing it all wrong, James. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's literally the exact opposite of what the plan should have been coming into this season, where we're trying to migrate away from being so LeBron intensive, trying to migrate away from being.
But forget LeBron. We're talking about Westbrook here.
But you can't separate the two. That's what I'm trying to explain, James.
No, wait a minute. Because, wait a minute. In this particular instance, I think you can. Because LeBron has never come out on the podium talking about, there's death threats against my family. And, I mean, what about, if anybody... Who has taken more guff from Skip Bayless talking about him not having a clutch gene? I mean, come on, for how long has he been in the league? 20 years, and Skip's been talking about him for 17.
Right.
But you're talking about two different dudes, though. And LeBron is built different. Like you said, LeBron has been taking this since he was 14.
Right, but So Westbrook hasn't taken the same type of. Come on,
not the same way. No,
come on. You're not telling me. You're not telling me that Russell Westbrook has never played at the Y. He's never been at a CYO game, or he's never been at the game in the hood where they talked about his. Whatever,
No, I'm telling you, Russ is immature. LeBron has matured and Russ has not. That's all I'm saying. This is a maturity question. Because you're right. He should be able to take that. He should pull up his bank account on his phone and go, "Oh, they call me what? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I can't." How do you
pull up his bank account on and then say, "How do you hear that?" How? I mean,
So getting back to why I feel like you can't separate the two, but you should, right? They should literally separate them. Like you shouldn't play together very much on the floor at the same time. But also because that's the comparison always going to be, but LeBron. And he's never been in a situation. He's played with other great players before. fact, he's played with a bunch of other great players, but none of them were LeBron.
Right.
He's now playing with the guy that is essentially the equivalent of, I'm trying to think of what it's the equivalent of. Imagine if Derrick Henry and Michael Jordan had a baby, right? So he's this incredibly physically dominant, gifted powerhouse of an athlete who also does it all right and manages to be essentially, as we talked about, almost a member of the front office, who manages to be an entrepreneur, who manages to be a philanthropist, and all these things at such an elite level. I'll admit, I was a late adopter of LeBron James, but once I got there, I was like, oh yeah, no, this guy is, he speaks out on social issues, but does it in such a way that he doesn't come off as someone who's bitter. He does so many things at such a high level that it's almost unfair to compare him to anyone else. But if you're going to come to the Lakers and be the highest paid player, you're going to get compared. And that's why I said you can't really separate them, because all of our discussions of Westbrook are always going to tie into how he isn't LeBron. Right. And how he can't handle, as we talked about, the pressures or the whatevers that come along with playing for a team that's expected to contend for championships, despite the fact they have terrible depth issues, as I talked about way back. And when your legs get heavy, which happens, right? I don't care how much you work out. Once you get to a certain point in your life, there comes a point when you're in your 30s, and no matter how hard you prepare in the offseason, all this stuff, you've played, day game after night game, or you played a couple of back-to-backs, or, road back-to-backs, or whatever it is, and now your legs are a little heavy. You're not feeling your best. And there's a huge drop-off between you and whoever comes on the floor when you aren't out there, because their depth isn't great. And they got rid of all the young cats who might have had chances to be stars, right? So now you've painted yourself into a very small corner. And it's a small corner that's getting smaller because these guys aren't going to get better, right? You don't get better at playing basketball or any professional sport that's based around physical ability as you get farther into your 30s, right? That's not a plan, or shouldn't be a plan, to surround your team. Let's build your team on a bunch of guys in their 30s. Yep. And now they're paying the piper, which I thought would happen. Once again, I'm not going to victory lap on this anymore, but everything's happening exactly as I said.
You totally victory lapped, and you deserve it, because I recall, and I'm going to reiterate a bunch of stuff he said because he nailed it. And sometimes when I have to talk after him, it's just he was right about all these things. It's okay. He's done it to me. I'm cool with it. So he absolutely, I remember the podcast. He said two things, and I loved it. They had a meeting, and they said, what do you guys think we should do? And somebody stood up and said, let's get older. And I remember that, right? And I remember thinking, damn, that's a great meeting. The other thing he said, which he just said, which is dead on, the reason you have to bring up LeBron is because Russ is a Laker. And the minute you become a Laker, everything in that organization orbits around one dude, whether it's minutes on the floor, trades, all of it. It all centers around one guy. Now, again, Bill, I was late to the party like Bill was, very late to the party. I am now a legitimate LeBron fan. I mean, as a human being, a philanthropist, as a producer of television and movies, I'm a fan of this guy now. And he does it all, and he always handles himself in a way that his mother would be proud, right? Russ is not, right? Russ is not. But the second part of that podcast we had back then, that Bill said, it's not a fit. This is not who the Lakers are. Russ is not what they need. I think they debated the day before acquiring Buddy Hield, if I'm not mistaken. They might have had a deal in place with Sacramento for Buddy Hield, pulled out and made the Russ deal. And I remember saying Buddy Hield would have been a better fit. Buddy Hield would have been a perfect fit.
Right.
And we joked about that. So you deserve the victory lap because you called it on both fronts. They got way old, and that's chickens coming home to roost big time. And he just wasn't a fit. And it's all coming to fruition. To your point, we quietly started calling him Mr. Triple-Double and didn't realize that in the last 10 years, he's led the league in turnovers 4 times. And he was second another 4 times. So 8 of that 10 years of the last decade, he was first or second in the league in turnovers. He's a ball dominant guy who put up stats because he had the ball in his hands a lot, but he also made a lot of mistakes.
Yep.
He's making $47 million. I'm not sure who's going to pay that dude $47 million. So you're in this pickle now. You don't want to bring him back. You can't bring him back. So you want to go to him and say, Russ, we need you to alter your role. Yeah, you know who doesn't have the maturity to sit down and say, I'm going to do what's best for the team because I care about the team and the fans. He told the fans to kick rocks wearing flip-flops. That's what he told the fans. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. And Vogel said it. And they asked him, what have you tried? And he basically said, we've talked about everything. When you're at a point where you're throwing shit against the wall and hoping something sticks, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. So it's going to be ugly. This is going to get uglier. And to Bill's point, Russ isn't going to get better. He's not. I don't. Statistically, like physics and biology and a whole bunch of different sciences that I'm not going to mention suggest he's not going to get better. So they're in a pickle that they made themselves. They jumped right into a jar of vinegar and closed the top of the mason jar. Now they're in there like, help us, get us out. Too late.
Demetrius, we did here at the Sports Crib mention how Russ has a proclivity for turnovers, but at the time, I think he was the triple dub man, and
Right.
there was all kinds of distractions until he got on the Lakers.
Right.
This is not, like. I'm sure if we go back and look at his days in OKC and we look at his days in
Don't nobody give a damn about the Wizards.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Nobody's paying attention. There's a difference when you put on that jersey. Like my team, you could lead the league in turnovers as a Piston and nobody's going to give a damn because you play for the Pistons. You can't do that with the Lakers. You can't be that bad with the Lakers on the same team as LeBron. So, and I don't know. I think he'll find a spot. He'll play another few years because he still has certainly a degree of ability, but I just don't think he's a fit for the Lakers. I didn't think we said it months ago. He's not a fit. They got to find somewhere else to send him.
Well, let's talk about Will Be Flat.
There we
Now,
go. Knew we were
now,
there.
when he left out of the Celtics game and, the crowd was booing him, he compared him to an ex-girlfriend that didn't get his text. And then the next night he drops a 50-piece. Well, I think it was 2 nights later. He drops a 50-piece, on the Hornets. So Bill, is Kyrie's inconsistency his consistency?
Love the question, by the way. Top 3 sports quiz questions of all time.
We've had a lot of fun with Mr. Irving throughout his time in the NBA. He is truly a fascinating study in the conflict between someone who has a very mercurial and somewhat almost insular nature to themselves, right? And fame, right? He is one of the people least suited to be famous I've ever seen in the NBA. And yet, it is his very resistance to it that draws people to want to engage with him more. It's a fascinating push and pull. And once again, we're talking about a player who had, I think, a 7-game career at Duke, if memory serves me correctly.
Yep.
Comes into the NBA, and a lot of people fairly early on started comparing him to young Isaiah Lord Thomas.
Yes.
Which is a little audacious.
Blasphemy.
But it was the comparison I heard people float out there.
Yep.
Because they thought he was a quote unquote pure point guard in an era where guys were sort of these hybrids, right? 6'10", 6'9", 6'11", 7 feet tall, sometimes even bringing the ball up and doing point guard-ish things. For some people, it's like, oh, good, here's a real point guard, right? They could sort of wrap their arms around, sink their teeth in, and had early success. And obviously, he and LeBron were building something. Well, it outwardly seemed they were building something in Cleveland. Apparently, the two of them did not get along all that well, as what has come out later. Kyrie wanted to sort of be someplace where he could be the man, had a chance to do that to some extent. he is, like I said, a fascinating study in all of the dynamics that go into building a star, right? I mean, he is a well-known person. So Kyrie Andrew Irving is this very talented, very gifted, even a tremendous ball handler. Though once again, as I've said many times, I don't know why his assist numbers aren't better. I think maybe this year might be the year. Maybe he breaks through the, maybe breaks the 5.5 or whatever it is. I think it was his best, maybe 5.7. I think it might be his best season of the past in terms of assists. I know he was around 4.4 for his career, which is, like I said, surprising that it wasn't higher. But this might be the year. This might be the year that he really breaks through. There's no reason he can't be one of the greats. I mean, I think that's fair to say, accurate to say. I think he could be one of the greats. The thing about inconsistency or whatever it is, there's so much about him that's so fascinating, right? I mean, he's given a tremendous amount to Lakota philanthropy. He has written, directed, and acted in, like he wrote those Uncle Drew ads, right? I mean, he wasn't just in them. Look at the credits for those ads. He is listed as like a story consultant and writer. There's a lot to him, right? He showed up on Family Guy and We Bare Bears, of all things, right? He's been like cartoon voice work. There's so many things about him that seem they should be fun and engaging, and then somehow he does something that keeps you from seeing him as a fun and engaging person, which is fascinating. Like, it's almost like he's resistant to being liked, right?
Yep.
I mean, I almost have to wonder if there's some intentionality to it or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think you nailed it. I think there are people, and we all thrive on different things. Like I am someone who likes to succeed. So like when I find opportunities to do something, my evaluation starts with, can I even do this? And I'm okay walking away from something that I don't think I can do. Like, can I successfully bungee jump? Well, no, that's white people. I'm bungee jumping. Why? What is the success in a bungee jump for me? I'm not going to feel better about myself, so I'm not doing it. No, I'll pass on that. I think there are people who like the journey / conflict / chaos of getting there. I am always looking at the finish line and evaluating, do I have a path there? That's going to drive my decision. That's an input into my opinion of how I think about something. I think there are people who are like, I'm just going to fly through this journey and chaos be damned. I think that in relationships, your question is great again, by the way. I think it's dead on.
Yep.
In relationships, I think functionality of any relationship starts with expectation, right? And a marriage is the best example, right? And in life, like failure or success or disappointment or happiness, they're a product of expectation, right? I don't expect the Lions to win 12 games this coming year. If they do, I'm going to be excited. But if they win 6 or 7, I'm going to be fine. If they win 5, I'll probably have a reason. But I believe that Kyrie thrives. This is who he is. He enjoys it and he thrives on it. He will, if you ask him a question, he feels the need to give you some fake philosophical crap about introspection and reflecting on his spirit. That's what he does, right? I've never, ever said a negative word about the basketball player. The guy's he's not Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas was pure, as pure point guards can be. He made other people better. He gave assists. I don't want to hear his name mentioned with Isaiah Lord Thomas III. I'll pass on that. I've never complained about Kyrie, the basketball player. He's a phenomenal talent. He can score the basketball. He's probably creative in his other works. The human being is exasperating. Period. He's exasperating as a human. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. He makes everything way more difficult than it needs to be. And I when he told me the earth was flat, I bailed. He became Bill's guy at that point. I only talk about him out of respect for Bill. Because if it were me, we'd never mention his ass on the SPORTSKRIB at all. That's how I feel about him. And all that being said, he's a great basketball player.
Well, that's why we mentioned him on the SPORTSKRIB. Because I mean, I don't think he would win any personality poll if we had to take one.
Never.
But and sometimes he doesn't always make those around him better because they're so exasperated. Are you going to show up next game? Is the moon going to be in Pisces, or a camel ran across your yard? Anyway, uh, I digress. I think we have one more basketball question here that I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, KD. And he's putting on, he's showing his expertise tonight. Of course, we do. If you guys aren't looking at it, you would automatically know that the one guy that is actually having a great game tonight is Seth Curry. But I think let's see, what are they? 32 points ahead now. Brooklyn is spanking that Philadelphia ass.
That game's in Philly too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is in Philly, and I was kind of wondering, how Ben Simmons was going to feel, but I'm sure Ben Simmons is sitting on the bench because he is on the bench. I was thinking, well, if Philly blows them out, but you don't have to worry about that now because it's the other way around. But anyway, KD, and this is by way of a personal goal mark here. He passed 25,000 points, I believe, making him the fourth best right now, considering LeBron is still going on. But do you consider him the NBA's best scorer?
Me?
Yes.
Of all time?
No.
Like right now,
Yes.
I would probably say yes. I think I'm more impressed because he also has 5,000 rebounds, 1,000 steals, 1,000 blocks, and 1,000 3-pointers. And there's only one other person who has that, and his name is Dirk Nowitzki. Right? That to me says he's an all-around player. The only thing about Kevin Durant, I've never said a bad thing about him other than injuries, right? Availability. That's the only. I don't know how anybody can say anything about his game. His game is utterly ridiculous. But make no mistake, you will never scoring on the field and in the bedroom is one guy ahead of everybody else, and that's Will Chamberlain. Right? but Durant is phenomenal. No doubt, Hall of Famer.
Just couldn't wait those 6 minutes. Huh?
I know. I glanced and I thought, we're here. I can't just let, because if I didn't do it, Bill was going to steal it. Bill was going to mention that. So I wasn't leaving that out there.
You did the right thing.
Yeah, I think he's a phenomenal scorer. He is for his size, what he can do, ways to score. It's unique and special. So yeah, I don't. You can talk about burner accounts, other nonsense on the basketball court. When he's on the court and he's healthy, yeah, I'll take him. I'll take him on my team, and I think my chance to win improves with him. Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill. You can, since he stole your scoring bit. I'm sure.
You can reiterate. You can always reiterate.
I will go a different direction. I'll go a different direction. I remember when I first saw him at college, still in college, University of Texas, and I thought to myself, somebody supersized George Gervin.
Yeah,
and
good call.
What he's done is he's developed other parts of his game because George Gervin, and I was a George Gervin fan. He wasn't a great all-around player. He didn't try to be, right? I think he understood what he was and he played to his strengths. Kevin Durant's become a much better defensive player, a much better rebounder, a much better passer. And as was pointed out, he's on a list that has one other person on it. That now, obviously, any list that deals with the three-pointer is going to exclude. Guys like Jerry West and things like that would have been on those kinds of lists too.
Sure.
The three-pointer had really been a thing in their time when they were playing. But just dealing with players that have been in the game since the three-pointer. Rick Barry would have been all over a list like that back in the day. If they'd had the three-pointer was a big thing.
There was a guy that had downtown, I thought they called him.
Freddie Brown.
Freddie Brown?
I don't know if Freddie Brown was a good enough rebounder to have made that.
Yeah.
No. I'm just talking about the 3-pointers. When you talk about guys.
yeah.
I was talking about the list he's talking about. You have to have all of it.
Yeah. I was talking about the short list with the rebounds.
Freddie Brown would have never got on the rebound.
Right.
Oh, no, but
that is indicative of like what Bill's saying about he improved his all-around game. Because we're talking about score, right? We use the word score. I think it's important to know he's not just a scorer. He's much more than just a scorer. But he is one of the best scorers as well.
Yeah.
Because
he still has a mid-range game, right? For those who've forgotten about mid-range game, that he still has that. He has a really good mid-range game. Yeah. You know, he's developed a little bit of like a little half hook. He's developed, you know, a little bit of a post-up game, though he doesn't use it a lot. It's very effective when he whips it out. I wish he would do it more, quite frankly, because nobody knows how to defend the post anymore. He'd be devastating if he post up these 6'7", 6'8" guys that try to defend him. He can still take them off the dribble, though, because he's Kevin. He can do so many things, right?
Yeah, he can do
he can do so many things. Right. His ability to score on you that many different kinds of ways is special, right? Because, I mean, how many guys his height can, like, put a run, like, you know, go across the lane and put up a runner? I mean, put up a little teardrop shot. I mean, he's got all the shots. He's got all the shots.
That's the thing. Yep.
And that's why the criticism that LeBron gets, because he doesn't have that little fadeaway jumper right there across the middle, or that little running, you know, hook across the middle. He doesn't have that go-to shot at the end of the game, which is why a lot of people, you know, give him a lot of criticism as a closer. But guys, okay, got a lot of NBA to talk. I mean, NFL to talk about.
Yeah, you do.
they put in work this week.
Now,
Adam Schefter hasn't slept in 70 hours.
Exactly.
Well, next week, you know, we'll be talking about this week. I filled it with a lot of quarterbacks, but you know, we've seen some trades go on today that you know, I'm not going to mention because I'm going to keep them for next week when we talk about some of the other things, because you know, we got a lot of other things to talk about, and we have to keep this going through football season. So I'm going to keep you guys on your toes. So. Let's talk about Mr. Aaron Rodgers here. Now, Aaron Rodgers, the Packers, they agreed to a 4-year, $20 million deal, $153 million guaranteed.
Yeah. Yep. That's the real number. That's the number you should pay attention to. The other stuff's imaginary. Yeah.
Right.
They'll use voidable years or whatever else to get rid of that. But the 153 is the real number.
Yep.
But, you know, since he's, you know, back in your conference, Demetrius, let's start with you. Have the Packers paid a ransom for next year's MVP and another one-and-done playoff contention?
Yeah, again, another great setup. I agree. I think, to Bill's point, the 153, the guaranteed money is what matters in this league. I talked a lot earlier about how baseball contract in the NFL, when you see these big numbers, and I think Mike and I got it absolutely wrong. We both said 2 years, 45 per. It's like 2 years, 90. This is more because he's getting 153 million guaranteed, period. Now, I would say to you, I would be shocked if he plays more than 2 years in Green Bay. He's not playing 4 years, and he's not going to get the other 47 million. Everybody knows what this is. His agent gets to go out and say 4 and 200, because what they want to say is that doing the basic Flint Northern High math says 50 million a year, and then you get to claim he makes more than Patrick Mahomes. Except Patrick Mahomes has 450 million, and his guaranteed number far outweighs. But okay, we're playing the semantic game of agents wanting to say, I made him the highest paid player in the league. So now all these sites and everybody out there writing, Rodgers is the highest paid. That's what this is about. This is some ego stuff for him and his agent. But here's the deal. He was going to hit the cap for 46 million. This does help them that way, but they still got to pay this piper. They got to pay this piper. This does not do them any sustainable long term. And when my Lions are ready, it'll be perfect because he's about to impact them. They're going to lose guys like Zadarius Smith, and even though he's entering his 830 season, that's a good player. Rodgers' contract, that 153 guaranteed money, no matter how, and the 4 years is just so they could spread it out and help them cap-wise. That's the whole point of 4 years, and it's not real. But it's still, they're probably going to lose Devondre Campbell, a really good inside linebacker. They might lose Adrian Amos. They're going to lose one of the Smith guys because now they got to tag Devontae. So are they still the best team?
They
Right.
have to, well, we'll get that. We'll talk about that later. Yeah.
But does it make them the favorites in the North next year? Of course. But we weren't planning on winning the North next year anyway. 23 is my year. We're coming in 23. And 23 is another league year cycle where those two contracts, either they're going to, franchise Devontae again, sign him long term. That those chickens they always come home to roost. Ask the Saints, ask a bunch of teams. Those chickens, that cap is like father time. It doesn't lose.
Right.
And in 23 when the Lions are
roster in 2025.
Exactly. When they have no draft picks over the next few years to start to supplement their roster, and they're going to be playing cats off the street. That's going to happen. But they have a window next year, possibly the year after. Yeah, but then the Lions are going to be coming, right? Then the Lions are coming for real. So I'm fine with it. We're still on our track to do what we need to do. If I'm them, I might do the same thing. I don't know. As far as Aaron Charles Rodgers, I think this was always about money. And he tried to play the hippie, I just want to be happy, beautiful mystery BS. It was always money. He wanted that check. And they cut him $153 million check. And he got his bag. So I'm not mad. His agent gets to say, oh, I got the highest paid guy. That's all the game. It's cool. That's going to help Green Bay in the short term. But there's a long-term price to be paid for this move.
Bill, does Aaron get a better suit? I mean, no, go ahead. What do you think?
The corduroy joint?
Yeah, well, remember all the stuff we just said about Kyrie? Remember all that stuff we said? I mean, there's an argument to be made that they're frighteningly similar in certain ways.
Yes.
Right? Guys who have a certain amount of intellectual capacity, but it isn't as high as they think it is. And every time you start to like something about them, they find some way to like screw it up. Like they do something that reminds you
not like it.
Right, I forgot. You're like this contrarian jerk.
Right. That's right. We hate you.
There's a lot to those guys that's actually kind of, if those two do a podcast together, I would be fascinated to see what that would be like.
That would be the best.
Yes, old Flat Earth and ivermectin going at it. It'll be a fascinating. Oh my God, it would be so fascinating because both these guys really do think they're the smartest guys in the room.
Yep.
So if they're in the same room, it's going to be a battle. And they're both incredibly talented, and they both really, like I said, they really seem to resist being embraced. Right. The people of Green Bay will embrace the hell out of you if you let them. There's still people who show up wearing their Don Majkowski jerseys to games. Yeah. They will love you forever if you let them. He has managed to keep them at arm's length. It's the most impressive part of his career. This guy should be the most beloved guy in the history of the place, practically. And he has managed to keep them. There's still people who are ambivalent about them, right? There's people who are Green Bay fans who are ambivalent about it. That's amazing. How has he managed that? It's a testament to his own prickliness, his own, like I said, sort of.
You gotta drop your favorite line here, your classic line, the greatness of pettiness.
He really is level petty kind of to a petty, level. Right? Like he's the one place where he might catch Tom Brady because it's not gonna be rings. Is that he might someday climb that mountain of petty and be standing all alone on top of it. My God, what a petty guy he is! Yeah. It's amazing how petty he is. Some of the things he says. It's like, really?
And that corduroy suit. I'm sorry, I'm never getting over the corduroy suit.
Oh, and you should.
I'm going to mention that.
It's a thumb in your eye.
Right, exactly. As a man who likes suits and enjoys dressing nicely, I'm just pissed off by it. I'm insulted. With his bank account, I'm insulted. I'm sorry.
I mean, I keep thinking that like Macklemore is playing in the background while he's doing this. I'm gonna pop some tags. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Maybe what's it? Cotton comes to Harlem set. Wearing with the bell bottom. But anyway, Uh,
The difference is those guys look good.
Exactly. Those guys are rocking those outfits.
Bill, Russell Wilson is a Bronco.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on this trade?
Well, we knew that Russ was going to end up someplace else a while back. I mean, this has been like a 2-year process. The seeds were planted a while back, right? And Russ is, unlike the last two guys we talked about, very interested in being liked and being likable. So he didn't force his way out, or in the traditional sense. He didn't start unfriending people or putting cryptic Instagram posts out there or whatever, all that stuff that you normally see, or he didn't start, taking deworming medicine or any of the other stuff that you see people doing when they're trying to, whatever it is. He quietly let his agent do what agents do and let it be known that for certain teams, Russ might be willing to waive his no trade clause. And, that Russ was looking not to be part of the great rebuild that's about to take place in Seattle. And frankly, he did it the right way.
Did.
And whether you like Russ or think he's corny or whatever, he does almost everything the right way. Yeah. Look at the massive upgrade he's made in his love life, right? I mean, no offense to that very enthusiastic blonde young woman who was sitting next to him when he got drafted, but she cannot compete with what his life is like now. And I wish her well. I hope she's happy and she's doing well too. But it's just
great walk back. Great walk back. It was such a great walk back.
I mean, I'm trying to keep it factual, but still kind. But look at how he's upgraded. So many things about his life successfully, right? And he now has a chance to once again chase a Lombardi trophy, which he would not have had for probably 3 years. Assuming that they do a good job of rebuilding in Seattle, they will be a contender again, maybe in 2025. Maybe. That's, contingent upon a lot of really good drafting, because they're not a team that's super aggressive in free agency. And when they aren't super accurate. Like, they don't nail it when they are aggressive in free agency. It's not like you see them getting a lot of killers. I mean, Bruce Irvin was a solid piece when they added him. I mean, but other guys you go, oh, wow. I mean, it's not, you don't expect to get Reggie White or whatever, but they haven't had that thing where you go, oh, wow. They don't do that in free agency where you just say they nailed it. So the draft is how they're going to have to get back there. The good news is he's stepping into a really good situation in most ways. It's a huge upgrade in offensive line. I mean, enormous upgrade in offensive line. And though you don't have DK Metcalf and you don't have Tyler Lockett, you do have a really solid young receiving core. Yeah. Cortland Sutton is about to, once again, fantasy owners, if you haven't already snapped up, if you're in Dynasty, hopefully you already have Cortland Sutton, because now if you want to trade for him, it's going to be really expensive. But if you're even in like redraft leagues or whatever it is, he'll go early. He's going to go early, and he's going to earn it. I mean, he's going to go. Tim Patrick is a really good wide receiver 3, and Jerry Jeudy is going to have a much better season now. And I mean that team is going to be better. I mean, that's going to be a better team across the board. And assuming that they can manage to get their best players on defense to all be healthy at the same time, which has not happened in the past few years, but I'll say most of them managed to be healthy at the same time. They should have a much improved defense. This is a team that has a legitimate shot. Now, the thing that makes it challenging is the Chargers also got much better very recently, as I'm sure you've heard. And they have I think, soon-to-be elite-level quarterback on his rookie deal, which is exactly what you want when you're planning to build a franchise. Like, okay, day one, we want to get an elite-level franchise quarterback on a rookie deal, and then the rest kind of falls into place. Yep. Now you can be aggressive in free agency and all these other things. And then, of course, Kansas City hasn't gone anyplace. I mean, good Lord, the AFC West, baby. Woo! I mean, Sunday ticket's going to be, working overtime this year. Mm-hmm. And Demetrius, we have to do like a something together when we watch a game together.
Absolutely. I'm down for watching one for sure.
Demetrius, I like everything that Bill has said. But it seems to me when I stack up that AFC West, maybe Russ and Mr. Carr would want to be cutting cards to see who's going to be in last place in that division. Your thoughts? I mean, you do have Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes in that division.
Correct. Correct. Now, all that being said, I don't think there's anything against the rules that says 3 teams from one division can't go to the playoffs.
Correct.
Oh no, hey, the Steelers, come on.
It could
AFC,
be 4, I guess.
AFC North.
Right. I believe that you're looking at that because those are good teams. And I would say to you that Denver, San Diego, I call them San Diego. Wow. Denver, the LA Chargers, and the Kansas City Chiefs will probably go to. I've not called them LA Chargers. It's been 4 years, and it's a running joke. Yeah, I think that as much as I like Derek Carr, and I do, who I don't love is Josh McDaniel. So I don't. If you ask me, that simple question to me is I think the Raiders are the 4th best team in that division. I think the Raiders have the 4th best quarterback in that division. And so yeah, I would say Kansas City is still the team to beat to me. And then I think Los Angeles Chargers and Denver both are right there and both make the playoffs. I think those 3 teams all make the playoffs. Your question was rate the trade. I'll be quick. It reminds me of the Lions trade of Stafford. I think it's a unicorn sort of win-win-win. It's a win for Denver, obviously, because with Russ, you don't have to win the division to go to the Super Bowl. The Rams just showed you that. They're in the competition now where they still have cap space. And if they manage their cap space next Wednesday, the league year is Wednesday, starts on Wednesday, they can still do some things to get themselves even closer to Kansas City. I think it's a win for Russ because it's about legacy. Russ has an opportunity in this window that might be 2 years, might be 3 years, I don't know, to put another ring on his finger. And there's a difference between being a Super Bowl champ and a 2-time Super Bowl champ. That second ring is a big deal. For them, it is. And I think it's a big deal for Seattle. It's a win for them because people are throwing the words Herschel Walker around. And they only talk about that in two ways. One, if somebody talks about the most incredible sculpted body they've ever seen, you often hear the name Herschel Walker, right? And the other time you hear Herschel Walker is in trades, comparing trades. I think they're wrong, though, because people forget a small component of that Herschel deal was Dallas had this little caveat where some of the players they got, if they cut them, they could convert those into picks, and they intelligently did that. That trade will never be done again. But what Seattle got, and then they let go of a guy like Bobby Wagner. I wouldn't be surprised if they move DK at some point. Seattle's going full-on rebuild. They got a bridge quarterback in lock. They got a really good tight end. The trade was good for everybody is my short answer.
Did this trade actually save Pete's job?
I don't know if Pete's job was in jeopardy. Well, let me put it this way. If they were thinking about firing Pete, they're still thinking about firing Pete. And if Pete was safe before the trade, Pete's still safe. Pete's in his 70s. This is a full-on rebuild. My feeling says you can't do this. You've got to fully embrace the rebuild, and it may be time to move on. You don't want – if you draft, say, Drew Lock's your bridge, but you draft somebody, right? Now you're going to let Pete start to groom the new quarterback when Pete can't be around much longer. Just biology, Pete's literally not going to be around a whole lot longer. But Pete can't coach football. That's a job, and I'm not talking about him being old or anything like that. It is a demanding job. And I think Pete has say in personnel. So that's a demanding role. Yep. And I don't know that a man in his mid-70s should be doing it. So my feeling is you kick him upstairs or give him a consultant role, and you probably fully embrace the rebuild. It'll probably be Pete saying he's stepping away of his own thoughts. But my feeling is, as an organization, if 3 days ago you intended to fire Pete, you should still fire Pete. And if you intended to keep Pete, 3 days ago, whenever it was, you should keep him. This has nothing to do with Pete.
I don't know, because if Russ was, if you remember, Pete came out 2 days ago and said Russ will be in Cincinnati next year.
Wait, Cincinnati?
Excuse me.
Seattle.
Seattle.
Yeah.
And my sense is that it was becoming too small of a locker room for Pete and Russ. That's why I asked to just say.
Oh, I got you.
Russ
Then
is
that has been addressed. So Pete's there, right?
yeah. What do you think, Bill? I mean, am I going off on the wrong tangent here?
Well, it depends. Which tangent this time?
When we're talking about, if Russ had stayed in Seattle, and we talked about this a couple times, a couple shows, was it going to be a big enough locker room for Pete and Russ? Well, Russ is gone now.
Right. I don't think Pete and Russ was the biggest issue. I think that Russ and some of his other teammates, many of them are gone now anyway, but do you guys listen to Richard Sherman's podcast?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Okay. Sherm is many things, but he is never a person who will mislead you or at least from his perspective. He will never mislead you from the way he sees things, right? He's not going to sugarcoat or whatever. I mean, what he believes and what he thinks comes out pretty directly. And he said some things about he's talked. I mean, he hasn't completely, as he said, open kimono was the term Demetrius used. The kimono has maybe been only, slightly open, like enough so that the Uber driver figures it was a mistake or whatever, not so much that someone feels violated. But he has let you know that there was a rift to some extent between certain players and Russ in the locker room. And once again, most of those people are gone now. And now everybody's gone practically. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of the participants or whatever, and when there was that internecine strife, have all found other environs. But I think Pete is once again, he's sort of what you see is what you get. He is a man who, through just sheer enthusiasm and will, manages to energize himself in a way that no one that age should be able. It is mind-boggling that the only coach older than him is Bill Belichick, of course. But so the two oldest coaches in the NFL also were like the two hardest working coaches in the NFL, which is very strange how that worked out. Both are extremely involved in scouting and evaluating player personnel on both the pro and college side, despite the fact that both of them have been able to get AARP cards for 20 years practically. I mean, this is insane how much those guys are doing at their age, which tells you, they are truly all ball. You hear that term about somebody, these are dudes that are all ball. I feel sorry for whoever their significant others are. I know that they must just be very used to being able to self-amuse or whatever. Maybe they like being on their own. I guess it works out perfectly if it's somebody who has a lot of their own stuff going on too, I guess.
Exactly.
But Schneider, as mentioned, or Demetrius sort of alluded to, Schneider and Pete Carroll are of one accord. So if you're firing Pete Carroll, it means you've also are firing John Schneider. I don't think you can fire one without firing the other.
Right.
Those two are essentially tied together. So John Schneider's not going to call Pete into his office and fire him. If Pete's getting fired, it means that Schneider's already been fired or is being fired simultaneously. Exactly. That's what that means. But does the rebuild save his job? And as once again, Richie said, no. I mean, why would you think an older coach is a better option when you're rebuilding a young team than a younger coach? Right. I mean, I don't see that logic. So his job is only saved or safe well, I guess, you get a little bit of time when you're sort of tearing it down to the studs. But I promise you that if they don't get better soon, he and John Schneider will probably get shown the door.
Bill, let's see. The Commanders.
Yes.
They offered 3 first-round picks for Russ.
They did.
And that sniff you smell is rejection.
That is exactly what that is.
So does the trade for Wentz smell of desperation?
Yes, those two smells, and good job on differentiating between the two. Yes, the one that has a little bit of bitterness to it is rejection, and the one that has sort of a sweatiness to it, that one is yes. Those are the two smells that you picked up. Yes. Now I'll be honest with you. You may or may not know this. But they do not, at America's top business schools, study the Washington football team or Commanders or whatever to call them
We'll do that.
for like, I mean, they may study them, but not to see how to run a business, right? That is not what they're studying. They are a case study, I guess, of a different sort. So a team that for, 80 plus years literally had as their team name as a racial slur was at one point owned by, I mean, even for his era, maybe the most distinctly, obviously, virulently racist owner in a major sport. And there was some competition for the, I mean, not that, I want to make it clear that he wasn't like all alone by himself. It wasn't like secretariat at Churchill Downs. There were some people in his rearview mirror, trust me. But he tended to win. He had enough finishing kick to hold them off. I mean, I've been told by people that when he was finally forced to integrate the team with Bobby Mitchell, and eventually he came to have a certain amount of, I'm trying to find a way to put it, warmth-ish feelings for Bobby Mitchell, but not in ways that would have felt comfortable or right to anyone. And I'm sure Bobby Mitchell never felt right about the warmth.
Hey, I got one too. Which, I mean, come on now, some of my best friends. Hey,
right. And he always sort of praised Bobby Mitchell for, and it's got to feel weird when you're being praised by someone like him for just how, being, how he fit in and, didn't make waves. It wasn't, uppity or whatever it is. But we've come to this place where this incredibly poorly run franchise has managed to top itself yet again. So once again, hats off, right? Sometimes you say to yourself, where is the bottom for this franchise? They somehow punch through the place that you thought was the bottom and keep on going, keep digging. So they've mortgaged the future kind of for a player who, one, doesn't tend to finish seasons. And we mentioned earlier about the whole girl with the curl, about the inconsistency thing. I mean, wildly inconsistent. And last but not least, I mean, I know the NFC East is not exactly a murderer's row to get through. I get that. And I know that Taylor Heineke's not a franchise quarterback. And I'm a big Taylor Heineke guy. I hope Taylor Heineke goes someplace else and is filling in for someone who's been injured and beats them, though. That would give me immense pleasure. And who knows where he'll land, but he's going to land someplace. And he's going to play well in stretches because that's who and what he is. But I mean, this franchise is just such a Charlie Foxtrot. I mean, everything they do is like, oh no, I've sat on my dick. I mean, there's what's next for them? What time is it? Yeah, I think it's after dark.
No, you're good. You're good, bro.
Okay. And then Dan Snyder is, I guess, on paper not the owner anymore because I guess his wife is the managing general partner.
We buy that.
Yeah.
Oh, that Daniel Snyder is clever banana in the tailpipe maneuver there. I mean, they are really a clown show. They really are, man. I never thought I would be so nostalgic for the days of Jack Kent Cook, but Jesus. Oh.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of that. I think it's desperate. Anything that comes out of that area, you feel like the sweaty smell that Bill's talking about, right? It just feels like it. I'm not even that down on Wentz as other people. I think he takes care of football pretty good. He risks himself in injuries, but I am still of the opinion that they have the 11th pick in the draft, and Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett may still be on the board. Malik Willis might even still be on the board. I don't think you take this and assume they don't draft a quarterback, right? So my feeling is, okay, they took the shot at Russ. That's a legitimate shot. They got a no bueno, a sweaty no bueno. But and it's probably just we're not trading him in the conference so Russ can come back and beat us later kind of thing. I'd rather trade him to the AFC than keep him in the NFC. I don't know. But they took their shot, and they probably had a list of guys they were interested in. Maybe they were considering, somebody else, and he was second on their list, or they decided he was the easiest to get in terms of this value of what we have to give up. But everything that comes out of that facility just feels nasty. Like a bra you found on the floor and you don't know who it belongs to. And it's just like, this ain't right. It ain't right. So I don't trust it. My guess though is that this doesn't preclude them from drafting a quarterback at 11. So but I don't expect them to do the right thing ever. So I think I like Bill's, sweaty analogy. And Jack can't cook. That was a great story, and it was appropriate and accurate. The organization that did that for 50 years, why would you expect anything they do to be smart or right or good in any way?
Demetrius, I saved this next question for you as a stat man.
Nice.
Yeah.
I know where you're going.
1,500.
Yeah.
Cost you $11 million.
Right.
Your thoughts on Calvin Ridley's suspension and thought process?
So I understand my role on the Sports Crib. And my wife said, "What is it?" I said, "Bill brings the smoke. Bill's got the history of the family. He's got the stats. Bill's going to give you major context." I feel like mine is to sometimes bring a little clever wit, bring a perspective on the story, and mostly bring some kind of find a way to mention Detroit. That's what I feel like, right? That's a lot of my role. Find a way to get Detroit mentioned. This one stumped me because this is just stupid, right? This is just the dumbest knucklehead shit I've ever heard of in my life, right? And I don't even have anything clever to do. Like, you should know that this is against the rules. And if you don't know this is against the rules, you're a next level knucklehead.
Right. You posted on Twitter.
Right.
And then you put LOL behind it.
So this one is, you should know it's against the rules. You should know you're going to get suspended. So you can calculate, no matter what high school you went to, you should calculate what this is going to cost you. You know what you make every year. You should know it's going to cost me a minimum of a year because all this stuff is in the rule book. My company has a code of conduct. I know if I go punch my boss in the face, I can probably predict what's going to happen. None of this is rocket science. So if you know it's against the rules, you know you're going to get suspended and therefore lose your salary, and you know you're not getting away with it because your dumbass posted it. If you know all three of those things and you do it anyway, I have no choice but to believe you are in fact a knucklehead. And it's after dark and I could say worse, but I'm trying to be nice. You either don't value your career or you don't value money. I don't know which one is worse. Because God has blessed you with a gift that allows you to, yes, you work hard, you train, but you play a game and you get paid a different level of money to play a game you probably love, a game you probably always love. And I can't reiterate, God gave you a gift. God gave you a gift. And your point is even better. A $1,500 bet is worth $11 million. I can't figure it out. I don't have a cute little clever comeback here. This is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. It really is. I don't know what else to do with this one. I don't. Bill can make it make sense. Bill like, no, I'm not.
Bill, now, not just, but if he sits out next year, this is a wide receiver. Come on, Bill. What are you thinking here, Bill?
The only thing I really have to offer or add is this is a young man who already had spent the vast majority of the past season away from his team dealing with, unnamed personal reasons.
Right.
So what you would like to think is he was working himself, getting help, etc. What you would not like to think is he was busy,
placing
lots of time on, like Caesars.com, or in this case, I guess it was
Bet Rivers for us, right?
Right. Yes. There's so many places where one could start, right? He starts out as Robin, right, to Julio Jones' Batman, and then he eventually gets to be Batman. And he's about to get the opportunity to establish himself perhaps even as an elite level wide receiver, which doesn't ever happen quite yet, at least. And then that's derailed to some extent by the other stuff, even before this happened. Now this shoe has dropped. He's going to lose a year of what would have been his prime, at least a year. And the team may be able to find a way to void the rest of his contract. I mean, he's young enough, and if he can show that he's committed to playing, somebody else will give him another chance. Probably not at the same rate as the line of the song goes. Today's price is not yesterday's price.
Exactly.
So when he gets his next chance to play, there's a fairly good chance he will have taken a significant cut in pay.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's this is a story that I think still has some unexplored levels to it. And I don't know if any of his behaviors, and I don't know enough about whatever his personal problems are, but I don't know if some of this stuff may play into it. I mean, if he is a person that, say, is, dealing with manic depressive, cycles of action, or if I don't know what's going on with him. But clearly what isn't going on with him is he's not getting good advice, or he's not seeking good advice, at least not so far. And it really seems like he has really extremely poor impulse control, and maybe even, I'm not suggesting he's not a person who understands consequences, but he seems not to get the full weight of them. And I know he's fairly young, but he's not that young. So yeah, there's some stuff about him. I'll have to do some more research, but there's some things there that worry me.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some things that were, his mother, if he bought that house, his dad, if he bought that car, I'm sure there's a lot of people that's concerned. Josh Daniels says the Raiders have no time for rebuilding. What do you think, Bill? We kind of touched on this earlier. I mean, the Broncos now have Russell Wilson. Josh still has Derek Carr. And he's got a knucklehead on his team too. That's not going to be around for a while. So he has his own wide receiver woes. What's your thoughts on the Raiders? Are they rebuilding next year's season, Bill?
Well, not intentionally. I mean, they may find it's happening, but it's not the plan. And the Raiders rarely plan to rebuild. I mean, let's be honest. I've been watching the Raiders. This will be my 51st year, I guess, 51, 52, something like that, since 1971. And at no point did I see them have that sort of trust the process approach that you've seen with some teams. So even years when they were rebuilding, it wasn't because they were intentionally doing it. It turned out, oh, we're terrible. I mean, that's not quite the same as planning to rebuild. So they may find that happens, but it wasn't because they were trying to do it, James.
That's great. I love it. So I think he's right, by the way. So here's the thing. They got food. They're falling for the okie doke. They're literally falling for the banana in the tailpipe. They were 10-7, but not a real 10-7. They were more like a 7-10 team. They won 4 close games against non-playoff teams just to sneak in. They're actually not as good as they think. I think he's falling for the banana in the tailpipe. They had a negative plus minus over the year. They got outscored over the year, and teams that are really good don't get that. It's just like simple math. But they were outscored over the course of the year, and they stole some close games against some bad teams and snuck into the playoffs. They're not as good as they think. He needs to rethink this, because you can call it whatever you want, or reload, or restructure, reorganizing, repossession, whatever you want to call it, whatever. You are doing something. You're not who you think you are. And as we intimated about 30 minutes ago, you're the worst team in the best division in football.
Yep.
So even at 7-10, it's not going to get you there. You got 6 games against Russ and the Broncos, Mahomes and the Chiefs, and Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you go 1-5, which is completely reasonable, that's 5 losses already, right? It becomes a math problem when you play in that division. And Josh can bury his head in the sand if he wants. I'm fine with that. It's not good.
As you guys keep telling me, the best of what is it? The best ability is availability.
Yeah.
Demetrius, the Panthers are shopping McCaffrey for a first-round pick. What's your thoughts?
Nope. Nope. If I may quote again, the great Tracy Morgan in Cop Out. Nope. No. Nope. Hell no. No, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. You're not. If somebody gives you a 1, so it's all right. Let me start over. The running back position is not the same, right? So if you're a team that has a back and you're bringing in McCaffrey to be a compliment, first of all, good luck with your cap because you can't pay a complimentary back that much money. And Christian McCaffrey doesn't see himself as a complimentary back. He does not have the body based on historical data to be this lead back. I don't know if anybody, very few guys do. The league is not worked that way anymore. You're not giving the ball to a guy 350 times. Earl Campbell's not coming back. That's not how it works anymore. There was a guy who played for the Vikings in the 70s. You guys will help me out. I loved him. What the hell was his name? Chuck Foreman. Chuck Foreman, right? The days of a Chuck Foreman who would just, you turned around and hand that man the ball. Those are over. Christian McCaffrey can't stay healthy enough. He probably is a 175, 200 carry a year guy now. And he's starting to see 30. We can see his 30th birthday. If somebody gives them a first-round pick, I'm going to be surprised. I don't know. If you're that back needy, and I know I would. I know the Lions would. He can be somebody's compliment back, but you don't give up a first-round pick and pay a complimentary back that kind of money. So good luck, Carolina.
Bill, your thoughts on the Panthers shopping McCaffrey?
I mean, they can shop all they want, and I'm thinking about what you would get for him on the quote-unquote open market. Two things are working against him. One, he hasn't been healthy recently. I mean, maybe that was a fluke or whatever, but once you start getting hurt at a collision position, history suggests you are not going to stop all of a sudden.
Exactly.
Generally, once guys start getting nicked up, even if it doesn't end their career or anything, but it generally leads to them missing some games for the rest of their career usually.
Yeah.
He is a very talented, very productive player. There would be a market for him. First, probably not. I think you might be able to get multiple picks, but he might be the kind of player where you get a second and a fifth this year, and they'll throw you a third or a fourth the following year. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing you're looking at.
I agree with that.
Yeah. You don't give a hustler centerfold playboy money. But
so now we know what we're going to put on your headstone.
Exactly.
Husband, father, soldier, and then the quote.
That's it. Strong believer in this principle. And then just put the quote. Well done.
Oh, Bill, can the Rams afford to let Von Miller go into free agency?
Now, we talked about the salary cap previously, right? They're already essentially trying to bend space-time to keep their team together. I mean, they're being extremely creative. Maybe they find a way to keep him, but that means somebody else has to go. Like, there's only so many parachutes, So somebody's not going to make it. I think they would love to bring Von Miller back. Is Von willing to play for essentially vet minimum and a bunch of incentives? They're going to have that conversation with a bunch of guys on our team, in fact.
Right.
Hey, you like it here a lot, right? Because they're about to have some hard conversations. That team is put together in a way that's frankly different from every other team in the NFL. They still have as people forget, because of the sort of splashy free agent moves and trades, people forget they still have a higher percentage of their team that's come through the draft than any other team in the NFL.
Yep.
People forget about that. And that's what's allowed them to do this. The successes they've had with drafting guys in the 6th and 5th and 7th and 4th is what has bought them the ability to do this. If they had to build their team around guys in the first 2 rounds, this wouldn't have worked. The house of cards would have already collapsed. But you can only do this for so long. At some point, as we just saw, like I said, was pointed out down in New Orleans, at some point, the waiter comes around and says, "Here's your bill." And so that could happen. Like they've eaten, they've had like foie gras. They've had the what do they call it? The chops where it's like a what do they call it? Lollipop, whatever. They've had those. They've had
the
like
oyster, they've been to the oyster bar. They've had the
they've had
caviar.
that. Right. They had creme brulee. I mean, they had it all, man. Brandy Alexander, the whole shebang. But at some point, the bill comes. Right. And you can't dine and dash. You got to pay that sucker. So at some point, yes, they're going to have to shed some salaries, a bunch of salaries. They might be able to keep this thing together for one more year. Maybe two, as you said before. Maybe two if they get real creative. But man, woo, boy, when 2025 rolls around.
That's going to be a different kind of team. But I think Bill nailed it really early, which they're going to have hard conversations. And some guys, they're going to simply say, this is Los Angeles. What do you care about, money or championships? That's the conversation. Now, as a gratuitous opportunity to mention my team, Bill also made a great point about them building through the draft, because the director of player personnel, right-hand man to Les Snead, during those years when they were making all these great draft picks like Cooper Kupp, was a gentleman named Brad Holmes, who currently is the GM of the Detroit Lions. So there you go. There's that. And he's absolutely right. That's how they are able to do this now. People think it's just Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. It's not. It's Cooper Kupp. It's other guys that they drafted, and how they do that. So I 100% agree with Bill. They can do this another year with tough conversations and then more conversations. To answer your question, they got Aaron Donald. Yeah, they can let Von Miller go. I mean, that's my feeling. They can still be competitive because they have Aaron Donald. And they probably have some Brad Holmes, 4th-round pick from 3 years ago, that'll step up and perform pretty well. They're built to do this at least another year.
Once again, let's see, Demetrius, the Bills, they're giving Cole Beasley the okay to seek trades. What's your thoughts on that?
I have a rule. It's been in place the entire time I've been on the SPORTSKRIB. I do not talk about knuckleheads that don't get vaccinated, so Bill can have all of my Cole Beasley. To hell with Cole Beasley. Bill can have. I don't really. I'm kidding mostly. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the human being. So I'm not even gonna say it. Bill can probably tell you what he might be worth, what he might get on the market, what's a good team that can fit for him. If you need a slot white guy, and I guess everybody loves a slot white guy, Cole Beasley can probably do it. But as a human being, I'm not a fan, so I really don't give a damn about Cole Beasley.
Yep.
Green Bay can't afford him. I mean,
Green Bay cannot afford it. Well, maybe. Who knows?
I mean, him and Aaron could probably have, some interesting conversations also. But
Aaron can give him some of that good, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Bill knows. What's it called, Bill?
Yeah, he's got this weird cleanse he does. He's got a bunch of things. Like, he's got it all going. But yeah, he's got like this primrose oil thing he does. He's got, I mean, you would think.
I derailed him, James. I'm sorry.
No,
I was asking Bill about Cole Beasley. That's on me.
Yeah,
James.
okay.
That's
So two good things on Cole Beasley. Yeah, and right, the Green Bay joke kind of writes itself. But he's a guy that fought and clawed and whatever his way into the league. Was a undrafted free agent. Was a sort of on the Wes Welker kind of, only not as good, but sort of on the Wes Welker track, right? A special teams guy, clawed his way into becoming a wide receiver 3, then eventually a wide receiver 4, then a 3, then a 2-ish receiver, and decided to take, a principled stand or whatever it is that these people call it now when you're, getting all of your information and advice from, a retired Navy SEAL or whatever it is. Who has inside information.
a certain channel that we don't like to talk about.
Right, or whatever. Yeah, wherever he's getting his information and insights into the world affairs and health and whatever else. There are teams that will put up with that. One, if you really ball out, right? That buys you a lot of understanding on a franchise in a locker room setting. If if you're a total whack job, at least if you really, really produce, people will put up with you for a while, sometimes quite a while. Once again, see Irvin, Kyrie. The issue we're coming to with him is he's not getting any younger.
Right.
So I don't know if the market will be all that robust, but somebody will eventually, give him a home. But I think he's going to end up signing, a very, 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 very team-friendly, cap-friendly deal.
Right.
For probably one, at the most 2 years, but probably one.
I don't think
And
he can afford to be an asshole. You ain't good enough.
exactly.
You ain't good enough still to be an asshole. Sorry.
Right. I mean, Atlanta sort of comes to mind as a possible landing spot. They don't really have a guy who's quite like him on the roster in a couple of different ways. But he is a quote unquote quarterback friendly guy, and that he seems to find, especially against zone, find a way to make himself available to the quarterback. Like I said, we made the joke already about Green Bay. But the other thing that works against him is this is a super deep wide receiver draft.
Exactly.
I'll have to, another time. But I'll tell you how many guys have who have draft-worthy grades on amongst the wide receivers alone. It's a stupidly deep group of wide receivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably get into the draft next week, as well as some other things. Of course, like I said, we did tag this week. We'll
I think free agency is next week, right?
Yeah.
League year opens. We got to get into free agent assignments.
Yeah, most definitely. That's why I kept a few of them. I held a few of them back.
I see what you're doing. Yeah.
But Bill, the Cowboys, they're going to release Amari Cooper, and to my knowledge, and I know probably the Cowboys and every team history, but I don't think that the Cowboys quarterback had a 400-yard passing game before Amari Cooper.
Well, Amari Cooper
but you can check it out. And they also released DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yep.
Now, I know you got Michael Parsons and, but still, are the Cowboys, are they still favored to win the worst conference in the NFL?
The answer is probably still yes. But we've alluded to all the little analogies, eating and then having to pay, kicking the can down the road, trying to bend space-time. At some point, even though people like to pretend the salary cap is, a myth or whatever, it's only one to an extent in that, yes, you can manipulate the cap a bunch of different ways. However, there comes a point where there's no more manipulations left. You've tried everything, you've done everything, and that's when you get the letter like that one, right? The one informing you that, hey, guys, we couldn't help but notice you're X number of million over the cap. You cannot start the league year in such a condition. You can't take the field. And if your team is still over the cap, X amount by such and such date, you'll forfeit that first game. Now, we've never gotten to that, obviously. That's never happened. But when you are a non-superstar, right? I mean, even very good players get cut all the time. This is that time of year, man. You're going to see some good, very, very good players get cut or restructured, right?
Yeah. And I like all the analogies Bill used. I'm sticking with chickens coming home to roost.
There you go. That
works.
Right.
This is Zeke's contract.
Shout out to El Haj Malik El Shabazz.
Exactly. Always giving a little honor there. With Zeke's contract and with Dak's contract, this was going to happen. And they like Michael Gallup and they want to re-sign so it all makes sense. So you could have saw this coming. We probably did see it coming. But I think the point you have to make is this is what makes this league the monster that it is. It is hardcore. And like Bill said, there's a letter, and I think it starts something like, Dear Team X, by 4 p.m. on March 16th, ... Your ass better get it together. So, something like that, right? This is what we see on our screen by 4 p.m. on March 16th. We feel like you need to make some decisions, and this stuff gets harsh. And this is the business side. It doesn't surprise me. I don't know what Amari is going to garner. I imagine it's going to be somewhere around 15, maybe even more, because he's a very productive receiver still. This is one of the few guys I wouldn't mind if the Lions made a phone call. I'd be comfortable with this. Amari Cooper is a consistent player. He averages like 14, 15 games. He's available, and he just catches footballs, right? He's got solid numbers over the last few years. And I think he's only 27. I think he's going to be 28 when the season starts. Amari Cooper's not like washed up or anything. So this one is tough. I think DeMarcus Lawrence will find a spot. He's an edge rusher, and those guys are after quarterbacks and left tackles. Edge rushers are the hottest commodity in that league. So DeMarcus won't have a problem with a landing spot. To your question, you answered it yourself. You called it the worst division in the NFL. Yes, they can still win it because it's the worst division in the NFL. So I think you kind of answered your own question. We talked about the Commanders. The Eagles need to make moves, and I'm not even touching the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, Bill, I'm sure you can give us a little better I guess history of the increase this year because the salary cap is 208.2 million.
Yeah, so
first time over 200, right?
Yep. So it's a significant, I think is the term we would use, a significant increase. So
because it dropped last year mostly due to COVID, right?
Right.
It had danced right around 198 2 years ago, and then it went down because of COVID.
Right.
The no fan games. Yeah.
Right. So what that means for certain teams, and there are some teams like, Titans and Colts, where, and the Dolphins to a slightly lesser extent, where they're going to be in great shape. And the Titans are a slightly older team, an average age of over 30, but two of those teams are very young. The average age of the Colts is just under 26, 25.94 years of age on average. And the Dolphins, right, who are truly in a great position in terms of that they have a lot of cap, and the average age of the team is just over 26, 26.12 years of age. There should be some things happening in Miami. They should be girding their loin and getting ready to make a run for it because they should be in a really good shape when you have that much cap space and you're a young team. But yeah, that's as was mentioned, projected to 208.2, I think is what. Yeah. And despite that, some teams, as we sure know, are struggling just to get, even though it's should be a lot of room there. It's not that much room for some teams. There's some teams that are going to be, once again, we talk about making hard decisions.
Yeah, with Green Bay, when 30% of that is going to two players, 26%, that's crazy. The Saints are in a really difficult spot. I think, though, that there's a part of this that you talked about, the franchise tag amounts, too. And I found that really interesting. These franchise tag numbers, first of all, this league just prints money. They have a mechanism in place to do it well. But the tag for quarterbacks is $29 million. The tags for a linebacker, who's second, is a little over 18. First of all, think about that gap. The number one position is quarterback, and there's an $11 million gap to the next position. Linebacker is a little over 18.7, and wide receiver is 18.4. But the running back position, the tag number for running backs is 9.5. How devalued, right? We used to throw that term around, like the running back position has been devalued. It is no more evident than in the franchise tag number for positions. That's how you can tell the value of positions. And running backs have just been pushed out of the money. All the money is going to the quarterbacks, and very little of the money is going to the running backs. So, yeah, it's interesting that it's over $200 million. It's only going to go up. This league has the best business model in sports, and it's probably only going to keep getting better. So, yeah.
And strangely or not, we do not see any running backs
tagged
among the tagged. But tight end is also a position that is very cheap to tag. And we see, but I mean, it just seems okay. Well, let's talk about some of the tags, and
sure.
Let's begin with of course, my favorite team, the Bungles. They tagged safety Jesse Banks.
Yeah.
Bill, what do you think?
Specifically about the
Jesse. No, Jesse Bates being tagged by the Bengals.
Oh, well, I mean, once again, it's smart. They're still working on a longer term deal.
Yeah.
He's one of the top 5 or 6 safeties in the game, and he's young.
Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah.
So, like I said, my assumption is they're still working on a long term deal while they have this buys them time to work on that deal.
Yeah. And outside of Devontae, to me, this was the no brainer of no brainers.
Right.
This was the easiest tag in the league. And they're definitely going to sign him long term. Jesse Bates, the third, is very, very good.
Well, I'm going to let you talk about Devontae since you brought him up. Go
Sure.
ahead.
Flat out, he's the best receiver in the league right now. No disrespect to D-Hop or a bunch of other guys. They have historically let guys go early, a year early rather than a year late. Problem is, he's in his prime. Devontae Adams is going to be good, and he has a very specific personal relationship and on the field relationship with the guy you just gave $153 million. This was the no-brainer. Bates was probably the second no-brainer. I don't think Adams is happy, by the way. Adams wants the whole bag.
Oh, no.
He's fine. I think his number is 20, although I saw 18.4 somehow. I think 18.4 is probably right. Yeah. I think that Devontae wants the entire bag. Devontae wants 5 and 125 or something like that. He wants some number that's going to put him over 20 per. With a bunch of guarantees.
Devontae wants to be the highest paid receiver if Mr. Corduroy is the highest paid.
He can want. Like Bill's point earlier, Bill's face says it all. He can want whatever he wants. That's great. The whole idea, though, is that, and it's not even fair. I don't know if it's right. You guys can tell me. When this happens, somebody in the organization has the job of sitting down with Devontae and saying, if we give you all the money, we're gonna suck. If we give you and Aaron all the bags, how do we pay Zadarius Smith? How do we pay Preston Smith? How do we pay Adrian Amos and Devondre Campbell? Guys, we're gonna lose games. So if it's just about you getting your money, we can give you your money, but then do not go up to some podium and start naming off guys we had to cut like Aaron did last summer, because we're gonna have to do that because it's a zero-sum game. This league is a zero-sum game. You don't have the luxury of doing that. So he can want to be the highest paid receiver, and they might even do it. But again, I'm going to go with the waiter and the check. Waiter's coming with the check. It's going to be in one of them little black things folded up. But you know what? Yeah. He's going to have an ink pen in there, so you ain't got no excuse for signing it. Yep, it's coming.
Yeah, but I mean, but if I'm Devontae Adams, I'm looking, I'm kind of looking around at the people on the other side of that table and saying, not only did you make him the highest paid quarterback, but you brought back Randall Cobb. Yeah. But anyway, that's another conversation. Go ahead. Go ahead, Bill. What do you think about this tagging Devontae Adams? I mean, we all knew it had to come, but
right.
I mean,
a lot of what I just said can sort of be cut and paste. I think they're working on a longer term deal. I think they're going to try to restructure where they accelerate his accruing guaranteed money that's non-salary based money and find a way to sell him on taking a salary that is probably lower than anyone would expect, because that will still allow them the flexibility to keep signing other players, particularly on defense. Now, frankly, some things that they need to change about their approach to defense aren't always about scheme or coaching. Some of it, they got to find some guys who really want to run into and through people, and there's guys who are not always easy to find. But, all in all, yes, I think that this is a program heading in the right direction, and I think that in the next couple of years, you'll see reasons why.
Yeah, I don't think Gazelle is on the market, Bill. Unless another supermodel that that might be on the market, and Devontae's Pimpan is good.
Tom Brady, like
You
Get a wife and subsidize
Bill, the Chiefs, they put the tag on Orlando Brown. I think this was another expected move, but go ahead.
Extremely. Yeah, I would have been shocked if he didn't. That would have been surprised if they called him and said, "No, sir, you gotta get out of here." That would have been the surprise. He's plays a premium position, right? All the elements, sort of like the bingo card that Demetrius laid out. You combined a premier position, you combine still being reasonably young, and you combine that with, coming off of being fitting in well, when he got to the offensive line where he found himself, playing out of position and, like I said, moving well enough that once he got his chance, he showed people what he's about.
Yeah, that guy is like Bill said, the massive team need because you got to protect your quarterback. Left tackle is the second most important position. He's relatively young. He's really good. It was another no-brainer. There's no chance they were letting him
go. Okay, let's stay with the left tackle. The Jags put the tag on Cam Robinson. A lot of people aren't too happy, including a lot of Jags fans there. But what's your thoughts there?
Didn't love this one. I get you got your young quarterback, and you got. I don't know that this one is going to work out in the positive. Most of these I like. All the tight end love threw me, but it is But in this case, I think they fell for the okie doke. We got a quarterback. We got to protect him, and that's just me. I don't know that this guy is one of the 5 best left tackles in football. And in theory, that's what the franchise is. That's how he's going to be paid anyway. That's how the tag works. He's going to be paid at a number consistent with the average of the top 5 guys at that position. Now, in a perfect world, he's one of the 5 guys. So he's worth the money. I don't think he is. I didn't like this tag, but it's very Jacksonville-esque.
What did you think, Bill? You probably watched this guy since he was in junior college, but go ahead.
Bill knows a lot more about Cam Robinson than I do, I'm sure.
Well, here's the good news, and Demetrius sort of closed on it. They do have some talent, and some of them are affordable or could be made affordable. But some of the older guys who, one, if they were on the team last year, have a ring, and 2, have had people in their ears, including their agents, I promise you, all the time saying, you'd be great maybe in this team, or this team's willing to offer such and such and things like that. So you have to really learn to shut your ears to certain things if you're going to play at a high level program on a regular basis. But he's a really fun guy to listen to when he's going through interviews, things like how he deals with that.
But is he one of the 5 best? Is Cam Robinson one of the 5 best left tackles in football? No. I think he agrees. He's not.
I think silence says, silence says it all. But
silence says it's time for final thought.
Let's see. Tight end. Let's start with the Clowns. David Njoku. Bill, what'd you think about this tag?
Once again, one that certainly was not unexpected. I think, obviously, like any player that spends much of his career playing, on one of the corner infield positions, like 43 or, which doesn't sound quite right, but whatever it is that someone.
I think the Clowns are making clown-like decisions. I get it. Sorry. I get the concept that this league is going to a lot of 2 tight end sets, and everybody wants 2 tight ends. Right now, the Lions have a good tight end. They need a guy to go alongside Hawkinson, whether it's because he's hurt or because you play a lot of 2 tight end sets. Again, is David Njoku one of the 5 best tight ends in football? That's how I think this should work. And seeing all these tight ends on this list is throwing me. Now, it might go back to the thing you said earlier, which is it's easy to tag a tight end. That number isn't going to kill your cap. But then you don't got to use the tag on Njoku. I don't think so. If somebody else is going to sign him, are you telling me it's impossible to replace David Njoku? And this is no disrespect to him. He's a good player. Is he one of the 5 best guys at his position? And is he a guy you can't possibly replace? And I don't get it. I don't get it with any of these tight ends. I mean, we can go through the others. I do not get tagging a tight end. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, hey, Dalton Schultz, the Cowboys.
Right. Is he if it's Tony Gonzalez or Antonio Gates? Okay, right. Maybe even Gronkowski in his prime. Dalton Schultz is a good player. Why is Dallas burning their tag on Dalton Schultz? Is he going to go out into the market and just get a gazillion offers? I mean, and even, back to the Clowns, they have another tight end. There's got, you can sign a Hunter Henry. You can sign guys. The Lions aren't going to tag TJ Hawkinson next year. I can tell you that. So I feel the same way about Gesicki and any other tight end you want to throw at me. We can go through them. I don't understand conceptually the idea of putting your franchise tag on a tight end and saying, I'm going to pay him amongst the 5 best at his position. It feels like an irresponsible use of cap money and at a position where I think is easily replaceable. So I don't understand any of the tight end tags.
Well, now, only the second wide receiver, Chris Godwin, he gets tagged. And not only does he get tagged, but he gets tagged for the second time.
Right here. Yeah. Getting that money. That's a good tag because he's good. And that's a position of strength for them. And if he would have left, and they're probably going to try and negotiate, but they got a lot of money. They're going to have a lot of money in the wide receiver room because Mike Evans already got his bag. So, but they need to, they still fancy themselves as a team who can compete to win in the NFC if they address the quarterback position. And whoever comes in and takes snaps for them will need a guy, will need more than one guy. So this one I understand, this one I agree with. The only ones I really don't like are Cam Robinson and the tight ends. I think the rest of them are, and let me go back. I get the tight end ones. I don't agree with them. They're low numbers. They're not going to kill them. I guess they're saying we can hang on to these guys for another year without the risk of paying them all the money. I wouldn't do it. But Chris Godwin, I had hoped he would hit the market for the Lions' sake, but that makes sense. I mean, you have to tag. That's when to use them.
Bill.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. Final thoughts as you finish your audition for what was that series in Baltimore? The Wire.
Oh,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, The Wire. So as you probably know, my mornings begin very, very early.
Yes.
So especially this time of year,
yeah.
This has been quite a stretch of. So let me see. I have been.
How many drafts have you been in today, Bill?
Well, I've been a few of those, but the thing that's been taking up all my time is putting together scouting reports on 333 players. So that's been the real thing that's been sucking up my life. But to your question about final thoughts and the things that stay with and resonate, and hopefully stay with and resonate, all of us. I thought about Curt Flood in all of this. And Curt Flood was, in addition to being a very good baseball player, was a person with an amazing amount of artistic talent. He's, there's, if you sort of Google, Curt Flood in portrait, you'll see what I'm talking about. And he sacrificed his career for what we're seeing now. And, Marvin Miller, of course, the then president of the Major League Baseball Association, who was still alive, talked about fairly recently about what Curt Flood did and how they went into it probably knowing that it was probably it for him, though hoping, he'd get opportunities, but knew it was probably unlikely. So I sort of did the air quotes around principled stand earlier when I was talking about some of the other players we discussed earlier today, and the Aaron Charles Rodgers, and we talked about Beasley and maybe a couple others. But this is somebody who truly was taking a principled stand. And the players that play now, and I hope all of them are at least aware of Curt Flood's story and what he did. But it really was truly the Tiananmen Square student in front of the tank kind of thing. The owners in Major League Baseball at the time had all of it. There was no recourse. The players had none of the power, none of the rights, none of the anything. So owners could keep a player under team control until they just didn't like him anymore, didn't want him anymore. He was too old or whatever it was. And all the things we see going on now with player movement and player empowerment, all this stuff would be impossible without Curt Flood. So on this day, I want to commemorate the life and the work and the talent and the tenacity of Curt Flood, who entirely changed the face of baseball. And there should be something named after him. Whether it be, an internship or a scholarship or a, something to commemorate what he did to change the face of baseball.
Nice. Good call. I'm going to stay consistent with my shirt. I am wearing my Detroit Stars Negro League Baseball shirt. I am on a mission to bring more attention to Negro League Baseball, the Negro League Baseball Museum in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yes.
And I am going to probably over the next few sports cribs start talking about Negro League players. It is just something I've become more and more passionate about as I started to do more things about Black History Month last year and last month. I tried to stay away from sports because sports is my passion. I talk here on my podcast. I preferred to talk about Mary Church Terrell and Ida B. Wells and Dr. Charles Drew and people like that. But out of that, I started to look at Cool Papa Bell, Turkey Stearns, and I started to just get these guys, and I'm thinking, so tonight, though, I'm going to ask if you're interested, and you look, guy's name is Josh Gibson, right? And there's a book. It's called Josh Gibson, Life in the Negro Leagues. It is a fantastic read. I recently read this book, and it gives a great account of this man who never got a chance to play in the majors. This man who struggled with what they didn't know then, but they would probably clearly identify now as bipolar disorder or some type of mental illness that he just didn't get the help with. Not just because he was Black, but they didn't know, right? This man who, as a baseball player, by all accounts, was every bit as good as Babe Ruth. His nickname was the Black Babe Ruth. He was absolutely dominant. Everybody from the era who talks about him, even Satchel, said, "Oh no, Jackie was great. Best player in the Negro Leagues is Josh Gibson." And Jackie might have said it. Josh Gibson is someone who I am not saying he was a perfect man, because there were issues that you can read about, you can find it. He's well documented. He was that good. He was that important to the Negro Leagues. But I think that I'm a big proponent of recognizing contribution. And just as an entity, the Negro Leagues were super important. And I don't know, as a baseball guy, on the day where they settled the thing and we're going to have craziest 200 plus free agents still need to be signed, and the NFL league year opens next Wednesday, the next week and a half is going to be bananas, right? I'm going to love it. I'm on a crusade to get even more recognition to the Negro Leagues and the museum. If you're in Kansas City for business or any other reason, take 2 hours. It's worth it. If you're like me, I'm going to have a collection of shirts. The next 5-6 sports cribs, I'm going to be wearing Detroit Stars. I'm going to be wearing Kansas City Monarchs, Pittsburgh Crawfords, all of it, right? And if you're watching this, you go, I think it's that big. As a baseball guy, I love that game. Nothing supersedes the Lions, but the Tigers are close. And now it's like the Detroit Stars and the Negro League as a whole, I think is something that the league itself has done a lot. I think players need to step up and do more to recognize the contribution and what this game was on the backs of a lot of people. And a lot of them were people of color. A lot of them were guys who played in the Negro Leagues. But there are also guys who never got their shot in the majors. Their contribution is recognized only in the Negro Leagues. So go look it up. Go read some of these books like Josh Gibson, A Life in the Negro Leagues. Go to Kansas City, Missouri, and visit that museum. It is worth it. So I'm on a crusade to promote the National Negro Leagues, and that's where I'll be going quite a bit.
All right, guys. Well, hey, great show tonight. Look
Absolutely.
forward to talking to everybody next week.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Peace.